Hey there, all my PopCon peeps. Magic Man Rusty here. Welcome to this live streaming episode of the Magnificent Seven. To continue the celebration of PopCon Indie's 7th anniversary, we like to spend 7 minutes with icons of popular culture, and boy, do we have one tonight. Joining us in the PopCon Corral, a man who brought us Muppets from hell. I'm your host, Rusty Emmerman, and our Magnificent Seven with Boglins creator Tim Clarke begins right now. Tim, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have somebody that is such an icon of popular culture joining us. Thank you, you crazy dude, you.
Thanks. It's nice to be here.
So let me go back with your history. You did commercial work. You did special effects for commercials. You helped with Jim Henson on Dark Crystal in '82, and then Fraggle Rock, the TV show, in '83. So you really could not have learned from a better master than Mr. Henson, huh?
No, that's very, very much the case. And plus some of the most amazing puppet builders, ever in one place. So to be able to learn from people like Franz Fazekas, who did all the technical and mechanical part of puppetry, and he had worked for Bill Baird, who had marionettes and Bill is probably most famous for doing the goat herd scene in The Sound of Music. So
is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're in Connecticut right now. We're, of course, in Indiana. Robert Wise grew up in Connorsville, Indiana, where I went to high school, and he directed The Sound of Music. So now I have one more connection with that whole thing. It's a small world, Tim. That's amazing. He did that marionette. Okay.
Tony Sarge, before him, Bill Baird worked for Tony Sarge, and Tony Sarge was the guy who invented the balloons, the helium balloons for the Macy's Day Parade, and he called them reverse marionettes. So it's incredible to have, worked in that workshop with this incredible puppet history behind it. A lot of people are not aware that Jim was very sensitive to the idea of hiring people from the best of the best in the puppet world. So I get to meet a lot of really amazing people.
You did. Now, through Dark Crystal and Fraggle Rock, did you primarily build the puppets? Did you ever get to animate them? Were you ever a puppeteer? What did you do?
Yeah, on a limited basis. I mean, on Dark Crystal, everybody ended up puppeteering in, the large scenes. I worked with Brian Meal, who did the Urza, who was the like Jen's mentor, and I worked on the Dying Mystic also underneath all that heavy costuming. And then for the big party scenes with the podlings, everybody was marionetting those. And sometimes the environmental puppets, like there's that one scene where you see the whole landscape moving. Everybody was involved in that. So
it comes to the point.
Skeksis too. I got to work on the Skeksis also with Brian. We did the ornamentalist Skeksis, and I very quickly fashioned a toothpick for him just before the dining scene, because Brian just went, you know what? He really needs a toothpick so he can pick at his teeth. I said, that's a great idea. So the next day, or that afternoon, I think I ran down to Chinatown in London and got a chopstick.
Of course you did.
I added a lacquered chopstick, and then I added all this stuff to it to make it look really ridiculously over the top fancy.
Man, I could spend an entire session just talking about Jim Henson stories. I imagine he was a quirky dude to work with. And you, what was if you could sum up everything you learned from Jim Henson in like one sentence, what would it be? What would his kind of mantra be?
Not to stop dreaming. It's like he dreamed that things could happen and make them happen, and for good or bad, that stuck with everybody who worked with him.
Yeah,
it's big shoes to fill to accomplish that.
So there you go, folks. The Hensen Proclamation. Don't stop dreaming. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you went off and you decided to, and I don't know if toys is the right word to use. They're not really puppets. They're kind of toys, kind of puppets. They're not marionettes. They're interactive creatures. And which came first, Sectars or Boglins? Sectars, I believe,
No,
right?
Sectors was the first, and it was based on a hand puppet that was a fly that I made for a Halloween party because I didn't like wearing masks. So I created this insect, and I would just go over and prop it on people's shoulders during the party, and people would freak out, or I'd take the fly's proboscis and stick it in their drink, or and people's aversion to houseflies, but yet a housefly that's as big as your hand, even worse. So
Yeah, well, flies are just disgusting creatures to begin with, but the nasty little dirty things they do is so small we don't see it until you
right,
blow it up, and they're I mean they're nasty. They are nasty.
yeah, they are totally
Yeah,
gross.
I mean they're puking on your every time they're in your potato salad. They're puking on it. It's not fun to think about.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
They already.
So yeah, you blow something up like that, and it just kind of becomes scarier. So Sectars first. I remember as a kid, they were just being fascinated with those, and they didn't last terribly long. I think they were probably they couldn't manufacture the quality on a price. They couldn't get that ratio right.
No, that wasn't the issue. The issue was that the the original sets were bigger, were more expensive than He-Man figures and everything else. So then they decided, okay, well, we'll sell the figures as single figures with smaller insects, which they started to do. But the big downfall for Coleco was brought on because Atom Computer, they had invested all this money on making, the very first tabletop or desktop computer. But they were a toy company and they knew nothing about manufacturing computers.
That's right.
And they just shipped all these desktop computers that were returned because they didn't function. So they lost so much money. I mean, you have to remember, Coleco at that time was in the heyday of Cabbage Patch dolls. They were making more money as a toy company probably than any other toy company in the country. And they blew that all on, Atom Computers. And it just bankrupted them within 2 years, I think. It was it.
Well,
fortunately, Sectors was in the middle of that. So
yeah, so they were just a collateral victim of this. That's right.
Yeah.
They forgot what kind of a company were. It was like when McDonald's tried to do McPizza. Nope, that's not what you're about. They kind of forgot. So you mentioned Cabbage Patch. Let's talk about this. This was the mid '80s, which was a magical time. I was graduating high school, and it was a decade of extreme things, but unusual things too that we haven't seen. So there was Cabbage Patch Kids, and it came to this. We had Gremlins, Slimer, Garbage Pail Kids, Ghoulies, Madballs, Critters, Trolls. I'm trying to remember all these TV. We were kind of into things that were unsettling and disgusting, and we weren't so, oh, that's gross, oh, that's gross. It was like the grosser, the better, the more unusual, the better, and that's where the Boglins. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is Boglins was originally going to be added to the Sectors line. So we had designed it, I think, back in '83 before a lot of these other properties came out. And then when Coleco went belly up, we got the rights to Boglins back. And Seven Towns, who's the licensing agent, showed it to Mattel. And they said, oh, my God, this has been staring us in the face, on film and television. And here it is right here in front of us. It's amazing that nobody thought about going in that direction before. So they got it right away. The prototypes that they produced were very, very similar to what we had presented to them, including the crate. Maureen Trotto, who worked on it with me, her husband, Dwayne Langenwalter, had designed the box, the crate box. And
Right.
so what actually wound up on the shelf as a toy product is probably one of the few things that I've helped work on that actually ended up on the shelf the way that we had envisioned it. So,
So yeah,
it's
because you
really,
have to make sacrifices and concessions during production, but you're saying you got pretty close to your dream there.
oh yeah, I mean, I have the original silicone positive of what is Dwork, in my studio, and he looks just like Dwork. It's like there's not a big difference between the two. The tail is shorter, the arms are probably a little shorter, but other than that, and it was great to see. Even more amazing, it's great to see now, all these years later, it coming back, and the way kids are interacting with it is exactly the way they did 30 years ago.
And it's the way you
Nothing.
wanted it to when you designed it.
Yeah, it was the whole point. Is years ago I had gone to Jim while I was working on Fraggle Rock, and I said, Jim, we're doing such great things with materials and coming up with new product ideas and or puppet ideas, but they're not being carried over into the toys that get designed based on Muppet characters. I said, they don't even do the puppets properly. It's like when they make hand puppets, they're not doing them properly.
Right.
And I said, we should really start a development group here at Muppets where we come up with toy concepts and pitch them to the toy companies rather than coming to us, so that things would be more inventive. And I always say this was the biggest and best kick in the pants I ever got. He said, Tim, it's a wonderful idea. I just don't want to do it. and then after Fraggle Rock, we were overstaffed with puppet builders, and Jim had trouble selling his next, concept to television, which is beyond me. Like at that point, with all that kind of success, why anybody wouldn't just go, oh,
Yes.
Jim Hensen wants to do this? Great, green light.
Green light. Yeah. Send us a treatment later. Just let him have it. Yeah. Right.
But it didn't happen. So they put us on freelance. And when I was put on freelance, then I started working on these toy concepts, and Sectors was the first, and Boglins was the second. So, it's been an amazing, time.
So let me interject a little bit for those people who haven't seen them yet. It was on the shelf. It came in a crate that was like a cage where the bars were kind of bent. Maybe we can edit a picture in here at this point so it's like they've been trying to escape. These weird, goofy creatures are trying to escape, and you could put your hand through the bottom of the crate and animate the Boglin inside the crate if you wanted. You could play with it before you even bought it.
And it's funny because we just shot the Boglins Thanksgiving special, which is up on YouTube now. And I was going back to, like cutting holes in the bottom of bowls and filling them with peas and stuffing and mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce. And it's, the Boglins just having absolute mayhem, in the middle of the Thanksgiving table. So, and it's like, it was so much like being back working at Muppets and doing these crazy little shtick pieces that, they're very comedic, and, these kind of slapstick, reactions. And it was wonderful. And they literally just launched it today on YouTube. So people should go and check it out.
Yeah, we're going to put links. So it's on YouTube, the Boglins Thanksgiving special. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's basically to promote the Kickstarter campaign, because each Boglin costs $25,000 in mold making cost alone, just one, because of all the parts and the eye mechanism and everything else. So
see, let me jump in too. The original Boglins, it wasn't just the mouth that moved. There were eye mechanisms. It was a it was a semi-complicated puppet
Yes, yeah, it was trying to get as close as to what we were doing on Dark Crystal,
on the screen. Yeah,
but making it so that kids could,
could still do it, right?
create
So
their own content. That, as Chris Cafoni, who worked with me, in the toy industry, he said, Tim, the great thing about Boglins is that kids get to create their own storylines, their own skits, their own little video shorts now, where they weren't able to do that, 35 years ago. But now it's like everybody can pick up their iPhone, and make a little video short with Boglins. And, it's incredible what you can get away with. They're
is.
very easy to use.
So it was a complicated puppet as far as traditional toy puppets go, but
Yeah.
it had enough features that you could kind of look like what you see on television, which is what you're going for. So it was like a complicated puppet, but with training wheels, I guess.
Yeah, all you have to do is twist your fingers, and because their faces are somewhat grotesque, it's very easy to manipulate them and get these wonderful expressions.
Yeah.
So kids just have a great time with it. Adults have a great time with it.
Right. You can create your own voices, which brings me to something else. So your Kickstarter, we want people to contribute to that, but we'll get to that in just a second. Every other toy in that era of the 80s had a story before it was a toy. I say every, I'm pretty sure I'm right there. You had He-Man, you had G.I. Joe, Mask, all of these, they were shows first, and then they launched the toy. Boglins didn't have that backstory originally, did they?
No, and the only backstory was on the back of the box,
Yeah.
and the heritage of, or the family tree of the Boglins and where they came from. And so, even back then, kids used to do, like with Super 8 movies would do stuff. I mean, now guys who made those little movies are posting them on YouTube, which is
That's right. That they are, and as a child of the 80s, we shot fun stuff on Super 8. You're exact, and you got to find the projector and roll it and try to edit it. No, it was
video,
yeah,
then,
it was, but we had a blast doing that, and so it's fun that they can create something. And you're right, everybody has in their pocket an HD movie camera.
Yeah,
it's so much you can be as creative as you want. Okay, so the Kickstarter, tell us what we're kickstarting.
Well, what happened was Chris, who had been for many years been after me about bringing Boglins back, and I just, at one point I said, okay, fine. He said, it's like, I have some money, I'll invest in it, we'll get it back out there. And I said, good, let's do a Kickstarter so we can, have all the fans help us raise the money to bring them back. And he said, well, Tim, what's a Kickstarter? He didn't even know what it was. And I said, well, it's this way of funding, proper, like concepts or ideas. And if people find them interesting, then they invest in it. And in this case, for every, what is it, $40 that you put down, you get a Boglin. So we're bringing back the original Boglins with the bars and the crate and the hand movement and the eye mechanism. And we have, the only thing that has changed is the new ones have become kings. And it's going to be it's kind of a spoof on Game of Thrones, but they're the seven kings from the seven bogs. Yeah. So the first three are Dwark, Flob, and Drool, but now they have horns, which has always indicated when a Boglin became a king, was that they had three horns on the top of their head. And this was established many, many years ago, because after they were sold in the US, they went to Europe and were sold in Europe and the UK and Australia and Japan. And the line went on for another 8 years. So there was only 2 years here in the States, but in Europe and everywhere else in the world, they just kept going. And there were mini Boglins and baby Boglins and soggy Boglins and just like wacky wall walker Boglins. It's like there wasn't an area of like crazy toy business that we didn't touch. So there were over 100 mini Boglin characters created, and along with them, there was a board game and all these other things that this has never been brought out in the States. So we're kind of drawing off the storyline that we created of the tribes, all these different tribes of Boglins and the kings who ruled them. And so it's great to finally get to explore that story. So
It's
we have the first three kings, and then since the funding has been going really well, we're already up to, I think, the sixth king is funded.
okay.
So and if we hit 150,000, then we'll have the seventh king come
Well,
out.
I did a little math. If the molds are $25,000 each,
Yes,
all seven kingdoms, that's going to be 175 grand.
yes.
And you're telling me you're close to that target.
Yeah, well, we're at 136,000, and I think we've been up for a little over 2 weeks, or we're right at the 2 week mark, maybe a little over 2 weeks. So we're hoping that it keeps going and that we get to bring out all seven, and you know, it's going good. So
To you, sir, I say shut up and take my money. So for every $40, you get a Boglin. And how if people
right.
want to contribute, if people want to, and by the way, when will the Boglins be? Are some of them released already?
No, they will be. We'll be shipping to all the backers of the Kickstarter first,
Hmm.
and that will hopefully start in April of next year.
Gotcha.
The prototypes have been completed, and we're now cutting the metal molds. So
That's
as we
great.
the metal molds are being produced.
It must be so rewarding and so satisfying that all these toy companies that said, "Nah, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think so." You now have fans that are giving real money because they love your creation so much. That has to be
Yeah,
beyond the money. The fact that people are going, "Yes, I'm going to be a part of this." That has to be like euphoria.
yes, it's really wonderful to know that people really believe in what they were. And so many people said, "Yeah, I had them when I was a kid. They were like the best toy I ever had,
Right.
and I've never forgotten them. And my mom threw it out, and I've always wanted it back, and I've wanted it so I could get it for my own kids
Right.
because
Right.
they have such fond memories of it.
And now they can.
Those
Where's the
crazy, ugly little things, you know."
Right, that awkward looking little thing, yeah, which is what we
Yeah.
were in the '80s too. Where can someone go to fund your Kickstarter? Is there a particular link or a name?
Yeah, if you just go on Kickstarter, if you Google Kickstarter, and then in the, where the magnifying glass is, and it brings up the search, you just
Yeah,
type in Boglins, it comes up right
just
away.
Boglins. Okay,
Yeah.
not Tim Clark's Boglins, just Boglins.
No, just all you need to do is type in Boglins, and it'll be there.
Well, I want to implore everyone in our PopCon family to go check these out and to contribute this. This is a wonderful piece of nostalgia, and it's right up our popular culture alley. They are so cool. So here's the other question, and I didn't ask you this ahead of time. I'm going to ask you now. I'm going to put you on the spot. So we have the backstories now about them. When are the Boglins going to be on an episode of The Toys That Made Us?
You know what? I've been after those guys for a while, and I would love to have it happen.
They
And
they're
and
ignoring you, Tim?
no, I don't think they're ignoring me. They're just waiting for the right time, and hopefully now it's happened.
I hope so. Well, listen, nobody puts a Boglin in the corner. What did they miss? Yeah, because this is it has everything that they look for in those shows. It's nostalgic, it's memorable, they're
Yeah.
lovable. They were because you had the My Buddy dolls, all that stuff. This was for Boglins were for the weird kids like me.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
And
Very
that's
much.
all of our fans here. Okay, so Kickstarter, please go to Kickstarter, search for Boglin, and for every $40, then when they ship in April, you say, do you get to pick which Boglin you want?
Yes. You can either buy. They're set up in different packages. Of course, everybody wants the Halloween Boglins, the Blobkin, and the Bogabones, and that comes with, I think, 8 Boglins, that package.
Hmm.
And but they start at $40 plus $10 shipping, I think it is. And then you can buy a 3-pack for $120, I think.
Okay.
And then it goes up from there all the way to the super duper package where you get them all hand signed by me, the boxes. So
yeah, well, there's where I'm going as soon as we get off this interview. All right, so
okay.
Tim, it has been a pleasure. Please stick around for the post show here, but I want to thank you for being a part of this. And I cannot encourage enough all of our PopCon fans to at least check this out. If you're familiar with the Boglins, you're already salivating over this. If you're not, shame on you. You should be. And I encourage you to look at this and be a part of the Boglin history. And what an interesting history it is.
Yeah, thank you, Rusty.
You are very, very welcome. Well, we will see you. Hopefully, we're going to see you at a future PopCon. I'd love to have you.
Yeah, that would be
I'd love
great.
to do a full 60-minute question and answer panel with you and the creatures all around us. That'd be ecstatic. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Well, until that happens, then
Okay.
live long and prosper.
You too.